Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry, send me you time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner with me, your host, Harry Simi. I hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. We're coming to you a little bit later on this Tuesday because I've been at the Sobha Realty Training Centre today. We went there for a bit of open training. It's just the first 15 minutes or so of the session when the players come out. So it doesn't provide you with much in terms of insight, but what it does give you an idea of is who trained and who didn't. So we'll get into all of that and we'll break all of that news down as we work our way through the pods. It was running a little bit late. The press conference was running a little bit late as well. Got back and thought, yeah, let's jump on and let's have a chat about the mood around London Colney today. We'll talk a little bit about some of the updates that Mikel Arteta provided ahead of that game against Bayern Munich tomorrow. And there's a couple of other bits of business that I'd like to address based on some discussions and some debates that I've been having with friends over the last sort of 24 hours or so. One of the reasons I'm late actually starting this stream is because I was engrossed in this really heated WhatsApp voice note debate with a good friend of mine about one of these subjects. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on. A big hello to everybody who's joining us because I know this is nowhere near the time that we normally stream at. So I appreciate this is out of routine. I appreciate that this might have caught a few of you off guard, but I did put a post out earlier today to say that the pod will be coming later when hopefully we'd have some news. And we do have some news. It's not the news in all cases that we wanted to hear. With regards to the fitness of a couple of players. So we'll get into that and we'll break it all down. But I'm feeling pretty good about where Arsenal are at today. I'm feeling pretty good about the game tomorrow night. I feel like my build up to this Bayern game has probably been overshadowed a little bit by first the North London derby that obviously we had to play before it. Also, the injury news, the worry, the concern about who's fit, who's not, that's played a part in me maybe not taking the time to soak in the fact that we're playing against one of Europe's best teams on Wednesday night. And while it is the league phase, and it might not tell us a great deal in terms of who's going to go on and win the competition, and it might not even be that significant in terms of whether we get through or not. In fact, I don't think it will be. But this is still an opportunity to test ourselves against one of the very best. And I always say this, when you're in the Champions League, these are the games that you live for. These are the games that you want to be a part of, that you want to be involved in. Nobody qualifies for the Champions League and dreams about playing Kairat Almaty or, Genk or someone like that. Like, with all due respect to those clubs, that's not what you want to be in the Champions League for. You want to be in the Champions League for the nights when you're going to face Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, etc., etc. And obviously over the last year or so, we've had some really exciting nights, exciting occasions. The semi-final last year didn't go the way that we wanted it to, but still to be there, to get to go to the Parc des Princes, to take on that PSG side, it was special. It was special. And here we are getting ready to do it again against a very, very good Bayern Munich side under Vincent Kompany, who, I got to be honest, when he got the job, it raised a few questions in my mind, because here was this guy that had come in at Burnley, did really well in terms of getting them promoted up to the Premier League. I think he got them promoted. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. Playing in the Vincent Kompany way, if you like. And when they got to the Premier League, there were questions around, whether or not they'd stick to that style of play, or if indeed they would change it, they would adapt in order to boost their chances of survival. And Vincent Kompany just didn't do that. And I remember at the time thinking, you've got to compromise. You've got to compromise. Otherwise, you're going straight back down. And somehow, Vincent Kompany did enough, even under those circumstances, to convince the hierarchy at Bayern that he'd be a great guy to come in and take on that job, one of the biggest in European football. And he's gone there and he's done really, really well. They're playing brilliant football at the moment, not conceding many goals. Harry Kane is in the form of his life. No surprise now that he plays for a decent team and all of that stuff. Got to make that joke as an Arsenal fan, surely, haven't I? And yeah, they're going to provide a really stern and tough test. Now, ideally, you don't want this game sandwiched in between a North London derby and a trip to Stamford Bridge. A trip to Stamford Bridge that I believe come the end of the season, we'll look back on and say, depending on the outcome, was very significant. Or no, you know what? Not dependent on the outcome. I think regardless of the outcome, the Stamford Bridge fixture is an important one. Because if we don't get the result that we want, I think you can argue that, the points that we've made up could disappear in terms of that advantage that we've managed to sort of build over the last few days. Also, you could look at it if we do get the result that we want and say, well, this was the day that we sent that message to everyone that said, not even at Stamford Bridge are we going to drop points or suffer a result that is damaging enough to let the others back in. Look, it's early days in terms of the title race, but I really do feel like if we win at the Bridge on Sunday, it's one of those where it's not just the points, it's the psychological blow that you deal to all of those that are chasing you. Because we've been there, right? We've been the chasers, right? We've been in positions where we've been looking at a team. We've been hoping that they're going to slip up. We've kind of identified 3 or 4 games where we've gone, that's a game where they might drop points. That's another one where they could drop points. And then you start to put all your hope on those games as being the ones. And then if that team that you are chasing comes through that game with flying colors, it deflates you, doesn't it? Sometimes even before you've played. So I think the game at Stamford Bridge on Sunday has huge significance, but we've got to be able to just park that for a minute and focus on this Bayern game. And I probably wasn't thinking that way until I went to London Colney today. I got to be honest with you. I was very much of the view that you should make as many changes as feasibly possible without completely ripping the team apart, without completely impacting the level. But that I wanted to see it refreshed, and I wanted to see a number of players rotated and rested and protected ahead of the game at the Bridge on Sunday. The more I think about it, and I have said this already, the more I don't think that that's going to happen. It's not really in Mikel Arteta's nature to make wholesale changes in order to prioritize a game that's coming down the line. He is very much a, what comes next is the most important thing kind of guy. And that's got its positives. It's also at times got its negatives. I can think of many examples over the years of games where I felt that certain key players should have been left out and they weren't, and they played. And maybe you don't feel the after effect of that straight away, but later down the line, when someone pulls up with a muscular injury that has in part been, sort of caused by fatigue, you start to look at certain games and you go, well, why did he play in this game and why did he play in that game? I think Bayern Munich is a big enough game and it's a big enough occasion for you to be able to excuse Mikel Arteta if he doesn't make the level of changes that a lot of us want to see. And I include myself in that. It doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with it, but I'm also not going to be shouting from the rooftops about it because I don't feel that strongly about it. I can understand both sides of this argument. I can see both sides of the coin here. And that's what I think makes it a really interesting discussion and debate to have. Look, we're going to work our way through some of Mikel Arteta's comments today. We're going to talk about who's fit, who's not, as I've already said. There's lots and lots to come on this episode of the pod. We're not going to talk about starting 11s for the Bayern game. That'll be on Wednesday morning's match day show. I like to leave the lineups nowadays until the match day, where I can provide you some more in-depth thoughts and analysis. I'll have more time to put my 11 together because I was thinking about it on my drive home this evening, and I couldn't figure it out. There's a couple of changes that I think I'd definitely make. There's some that I'm kind of on the fence about. And for that reason, I'm going to withhold my starting 11 until tomorrow's episode. So join us tomorrow, Wednesday morning, live at 10 a.m. on YouTube, and it'll be in your podcast feeds very, very shortly after that. Listen to it on your way down to the game, or while you're trying to get through work and try and kind of build up to the game without sort of what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is, I don't know about you guys, but when I had a job that didn't involve football, what I used to do a lot at work on a match day, on a big match day, was just find ways of distracting myself. And often that would involve listening to content that has nothing to do with my job. So if you're interested in listening to something that probably has nothing to do with your job, then tune into the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. But look, before we get into all of that, before we break down today's press conference and all the rest of it, if you wouldn't mind, if you're with us on YouTube, please do, guys, leave a like on the video. It really, really does help. Subscribe to the channel, hype the video too if you're watching this back on playback. All of that stuff really, really does help. Remember, you can check us out on Patreon as well. You can click the QR code in the top corner of your screens, or you can click on the link in the description if you're listening to us on audio. We put a Patreon pod out yesterday talking about the unboxing of Gyökeres. That's what I called the North London derby. And the way that we kind of utilized him and the way that we created spaces around him. And we really facilitated him, I think, for the first time in a while. And I know Tottenham's setup helped us with that. And I know Tottenham were dreadful in a lot of ways in terms of the spaces that they afforded to him and all the rest of it. But I guess my point is here is that it felt like a kind of I'm here performance from Gyökeres. And so, yeah, we did a piece on that for patrons, which you can check out, of course. Someone says, James Bond says, wasn't this show scheduled for 2 p.m.? 2 p.m.? It's nearly 7 p.m. here in the UK. You're well off. You're well off. Anyway, AFC 777, like, hype, and subscribe, people. Yes, please do. Okay, let's work our way through some of what Mikel Arteta had to say today, shall we? In terms of the open training, now let me just explain. I've done this before, but I feel like I need to explain what going to open training entails. And the reason I need to do that is because I get people coming at me saying, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you say that? Or whatever. And that's not the way it works. So basically the way it works, you arrive at London Colney. When you are called, you are allowed to walk around to the training pitches. And you stand by the side of the training pitch for the first 15 minutes. Now, during that time, you will see players coming out onto the pitch. That's why you always get these tweets and posts and videos from people saying, there's Martin Odegaard, there's Gabriel Jesus, there's this player, there's that player. Oh, X is missing, Y is missing. That's how it works. The takeaways from today, in terms of what we were allowed to see, Viktor Gyokeres was not there. There was no sign of him whatsoever. There was still no sign of Kai Havertz. That doesn't come as a major surprise, given that Julian Nagelsmann talked of a setback that he had suffered. And I'll come on to what Mikel had to say about Havertz today. No sign of young Max Dowman either. Big Gabby was obviously missing. But for me, the one that stood out was Viktor Gyokeres, because I did hope that Viktor Gyokeres would be there today, that we'd watch him come out, that we'd watch him join in with the sort of warm-up section of the training session. And even if he wasn't quite ready to make the squad on Wednesday night, it would give everybody a lift because, listen, Mikel Merino's done an unbelievable job and he played brilliantly in the North London derby. But we all know, and we know from experience, that having Mikel Merino up front, it's not sustainable. Okay, he's got lots of qualities. He brings lots to the table, but it's not sustainable. It's not something that we can continue with. And we've had some really rotten luck when it comes to strikers and their fitness so far this season. Kai Havertz and Viktor Gyokeres haven't had the opportunity to play together, really, whether that be both in the same lineup or one coming off the bench to kind of supplement and take some of the burden off from the other. We just haven't seen it. When I turned up today, there was a part of me that thought that Viktor Gyokeres might just be involved in that training session. And if he was, that would have been a huge boost to me, because I don't know why. And I don't know if it was down to me maybe misinterpreting some of the reporting, or maybe the reporting not being clear enough. I'm not pointing fingers. I really don't know. But there was a part of me that really hoped and thought, actually, that when we returned from the international break, Viktor Gyokeres would be good and ready to go. Obviously, he wasn't available for the North London derby. It doesn't look like he's going to be available for this game against Bayern. And it sounds like there's a small chance, but I wouldn't hold your breath, that he might make the squad for Chelsea. But again, we don't know. I just feel like no matter how good you are, no matter how much depth you have, no matter how well other players slot into that false nine role, and no matter how well they adapt, not having a 9 is a problem. And I know that you could make the case that maybe someone like Kai Havertz, who is in a traditional 9, means that when you then lose him, it's not something that's impossible to replace or to deal with, because actually you're bringing in someone who probably is going to half play as a midfielder, in which case if you put a midfielder there, then that adaptation should be easier. I get all of that. I understand that logic and I understand that thinking, but I just think to be without strikers is a problem. We've coped with that problem really, really well. We need people to step up. Leandro Trossard's done that in recent weeks. Gyökeres got a hat-trick in the North London derby. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that, can you, in terms of stepping up and filling that void? But at this moment in time, I'm a little bit disappointed that Gyökeres is not back. Now, what did Mikel Arteta have to say then on Viktor Gyokeres? It was one of the first questions that was put to him, which is why I didn't ask it before you start having a go at me. Why didn't I ask about that? He said that Gyökeres and Havertz are to have repeat scans this week to decide if they're ready to be pushed with the weekend coming up. So basically, they're not quite at that point where they're willing to push those two guys to really kind of up their work rate, work level, I beg your pardon, up the intensity level in their recoveries. They're not at that point yet. They're going to have a scan this week, which will reveal that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that scan's already taken place and Mikel Arteta's just remaining tight-lipped on it. He's got to give us something, obviously, but you know, he's not going to spill the beans all of the time. And this takes me on to another point, by the way. This is a bit of a digression, but I've got to say this. I just have to get this out. Has it always been this way in terms of the way people dissect press conferences? Like, have people always been as angry about press conferences as they are today? And I'm not talking about any one individual. I'm just talking about generally speaking, because I feel like nowadays with social media and the way the quotes get chopped up and all the rest of it, it feels like we've got it feels like we kind of hang on to every word and we overanalyze everything that's said to the point where we start to get angry and frustrated about things that in reality, you know, like we shouldn't be annoyed about. Like, someone said to me today, someone messaged me on, I think it was on either on Instagram or on X, I can't remember. Someone sent me a message and said, for God's sakes, man, Arteta does a press conference and he doesn't tell us clearly when people are going to be back, and he doesn't clearly give us team news. What's the bloody point in them? And I thought to myself, I get the frustration to a point and to a degree, because when you care so deeply about something, and we all care deeply about this football club, you want to know everything, right? You want to be across it. You want to be switched onto it. You want to understand, you know, exactly what the picture looks like in order to provide yourself with as much comfort as possible around any given awkward or difficult situation, or any situation that creates an anxiety or a stress, right? And going into a big game, there is an anxiety, there is a stress about how it's going to go. And so you want all the information to hand. But I just feel like sometimes you have to just take a step back and think about this. Does any other manager go into a press conference and give away all of his team news? Does any other manager go in and spill the beans on tactical sort of plans and ideas? Does any other manager go out there and criticize his players regularly? Does any other decent manager, I should preface that with, go out and criticize all his players every week? Does every other manager air their dirty laundry in public? No, they don't. So why do we expect that from Mikel? And this does not just sort of, this isn't just about Mikel, by the way. This is about press conferences in general. Like, the amount of times now you'll see articles built on one quote from a press conference that spark lots of debate and lots of questions and all of that. And I get that it's content, and we do it here as well, right? We talk about press conferences and we break down what the managers had to say. But it's very rare that I come away from a press conference angry or disappointed, because I kind of know what they are and I know what they're going to be. And so when I come away, sometimes I think, oh, that was a nice line. Oh, that was a nice line. That was a good bit. That's insightful. There are other bits of that press conference that I'll look at and I'll go, yep, standard. That was just, yep, standard answer, routine answer. No story here. Like that's just the way it is, guys. That's just the way it is. And that's the way it is across the board, by the way. The only time, and again, just to continue on this digression for like literally 30 more seconds, sorry. The only press conference I can remember coming away from being actually frustrated, like to the point where I was almost angry about it, was after the PSG away game in the Champions League semi-final. Because I came away from that game feeling like Mikel Arteta had let himself down in that press conference when he said that we were the better team and that even the PSG bench had said that we were the better team and all the rest of it. And I get it, right? When you're being attacked, when you are being asked tough, difficult questions, when you're hurt because you've just been dumped out of a Champions League semi-final, some people's instincts are to swing back. And I understand that because I'm a bit like that. Maybe not so much now, but I've certainly been like that in the past, where you want to have a go at me? Do you know what? I'll have a go at you back and I'll do it louder. You know, you want to swing a punch at me, I'll swing one back at you. Do you know that was, I'm not saying that I always did that. I'm saying like my attitude was that. You want to fight me, I'll fight you. You know, you want to push me, I'll push you harder. You know, you want to shout at me, I'll shout at you louder. And I think sometimes when you're really, really emotional, whether that's your nature or not, whether that's common behavior for you or not, that stuff's going to happen. And obviously, Mikel Arteta or any other manager for that matter are not going to get up and start swinging punches at the press, but they will defend themselves. And I felt that in his desperation that night to cope with the emotion of being dumped out in the Champions League semi-final the way that we were, in order to try and cope with that and to protect himself and his team, he just went too far in, you know, trying to highlight how good we were. He could have given it the old, you know, we fell short, really proud of the performance, given the injuries we had, given the problems that we had. You know, I'm really, really proud, but we're devastated. Instead, it was like, no, we were the better team. Even Luis Enrique told me that. And that was the one time that I can remember where I came away from a press conference annoyed. So it can happen from time to time, but it feels like some people take every word so literally and expect things that are just completely unrealistic. And so after every press conference, they're angry about them. And I don't get why. Maybe it's just me. I don't get it. But anyway, to go back to what we were actually talking about, Gyökeres and Havertz are going to have repeat scans this week to decide if they're ready to be pushed. Just to go back to the open training stuff, no Havertz, no Dowman, Gabriel obviously missing. But for me, the biggest story was that Viktor Gyokeres was not there. Good to see, though, that young Marley Salmon was in with the group. Martin Odegaard was training with the group, as was Gabriel Jesus. Now, Mikel Arteta talked about Gabriel Jesus and his return. And that was one of my questions at today's press conference. So I'm going to share a little clip with you in just a minute. So I'll bring you up to speed with exactly what he had to say about the Brazilian's return to fitness. I also asked him about Gabriel Hene as well, who, and you might be thinking again, and this is why I have to explain how these things work. You might be thinking, but why the hell did you ask about Gabriel Hene? Well, all the questions have been asked. Team news, who's fit, who's not, Harry Kane, Vincent Kompany, how big a challenge the Bayern pose, all of that generic stuff, all of the, and I say generic as if it's a bad thing, it's got to be asked, but I'm not one of the first people at a press conference to ask a question. So by the time they work their way through the pecking order and get to me, most of the stuff relative to that game and most of the stuff that, you know, people would say are their go-to questions have been done already. And so I got to think outside the box. The amount of times, guys, I can't tell you how many times I've been into a press conference, written down a couple of questions that I want to ask. And then as the press conference goes on, I've got to like cross them out. Nope, can't ask that. That's been asked. Can't ask that. Nope, can't ask that. And then I got to make one up and think of one on the spot. But the reason I asked him about Gabriel Hene, and I'm going to play you the clip in just a second, is because as we were standing by the side of the training pitch today, and the players and the staff were making their way out onto the field ahead of the session, Gabriel Hene and Mikel Arteta were having a conversation. It was in Spanish. I didn't understand what they were saying. But there was a real passion about the conversation, more so from Gabriel Hene's side, by the way. Mikel Arteta was kind of looking at him as if to say, in my opinion, this is how I interpreted it, as if to say, like, yeah, the press is there, mate. Like, tone it down a bit. And they were walking, and Gabriel Hene just kept on going. He kept, whatever he was saying, he just kept on going. And Mikel was walking a good 5-6 yards in front of him and sort of half looking back. And Gabriel Hene was still barking out whatever it was that he was saying to Mikel Arteta, which sparked that thought in my mind about what it is that Gabriel Hene has brought to the club. Because I think you can see from afar that he's incredibly passionate. You can see from afar that he's, really trying to get across the need for intensity. And I said this on TalkSport's Inside Gooners yesterday, which you can check out. I said that I feel like what's really good about this team right now is that the emotion is still there, but we've learned to control it. And I think when you've got certain other coaches around, and maybe Mikel himself, who have maybe looked at what's happened in previous seasons and gone, we need to control that emotion a little bit better. Maybe they felt it had gone slightly too far the other way. And that's why Gabriel Hene was a good addition, because he will bring that back out of you. As long as there's balance within the coaching staff and balance within the squad in terms of how that's interpreted, then I think actually having that emotional balance but being able to pull on the emotion when you need it, also being able to be a bit more serene and calm when necessary, I think that's really, really important. But let's have a listen to what what Mikel Arteta had to say, first of all, on Gabriel Hene, and secondly, on Gabriel Jesus, because I asked him when exactly does he think he'll be available to come back into the first team squad. Have a listen.
Harry, BBC Radio.
Hi, Mikel. Can I just ask you about Gabriel Hene? Obviously, he's joined your staff, and from the outside looking in, he looks extremely passionate. Looks like he's got great energy. What would you say, from a technical aspect, he's brought to your coaching staff that I'm not saying you didn't have before, but what are his specific qualities?
Well, his experience, he's a winner. He's won in many clubs that he's been at. He had a very different education as well. Obviously, we know each other for 23 years. I'm very close of that. That brings something extra. But that level of passion, Gary probably shows us in a way, but Albert shows in a different way, or Molly, or Nico, or Iñaki, and everybody that is around. So it's great, because at the end, what I'm really happy is that we complement each other really well, and everybody brings a different insight, different character, different personality to the table, and that makes us a much better team. It makes me a much better coach as well, which is the intention, to have the best resources to give to the players.
And it's great to see Gabriel Jesus back on the training pitch. We've all seen the videos online of him sort of putting the ball in the back of the net. Is there any idea when you think he'll be ready to be a part of the squad again?
Yeah. He's quite close, to be fair, and it's earlier than we expected. In the next few days, he's going to have another step to make with a game that we're going to organize for him, and after that, he's just going to be knocking on the door, because this is Gabi, and we knew that was happening.
There you go. That was Mikel Arteta earlier on today at the pre-Bayern Munich press conference. So Gabi Jesus, not far away at all. Which is really, really good to hear. So let me just quickly summarize his comments on the Brazilian, because in there he said that there's going to be a game. They're sort of arranging a game for him. It is going to be a behind closed doors game. And I think it was AFC Fixture News on X a few hours ago put out that it's a game against a Manchester United 11. Now, I haven't had that confirmed, but I've got no reason to doubt the report. And that game is apparently going to take place on Thursday afternoon. So is Gabi Jesus going to be in the picture for Sunday at Stamford Bridge? Maybe. And if he is, what an occasion to come back to, right? But yeah, really good to see that the Brazilian is close. So let's just quickly summarize all the news then from today's press conference. I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm tired. It's late in the day. It's been a long day. I feel like I need to make sure that I summarize so that you've got all the points that I want to make on today's presser pod. See what I mean? I'll do it really, really quickly. So from open training, still no Havertz, no sign of Dowman. Gabriel obviously missing, but perhaps most interestingly, no Viktor Gyokeres. Odegaard and Jesus were with the group. Odegaard is very, very close. And apparently there was going to be a meeting today to decide whether he would be in the squad for Bayern on Wednesday night. So there's a chance that the captain is in the side, of course. tomorrow. That's what Mikel had to say on him. I talked about the Gyökeres and Havertz repeat scans. Then they'll decide whether to push forward with the next stage of their recovery, but they're not far away. And we've talked about that behind closed doors game that's been arranged, not just for Gabriel Jesus, by the way, but for all the players returning from injury so that they can build themselves up and have some minutes. So I think that's a good idea, actually, because it must be quite difficult when players are coming back from long-term injuries to know how exactly you introduce them, like where they're at, because we're at an important part of the season. Every part of the season is important, but we're at a stage where you're looking at it and you're going, well, I can't really mess around here because we're playing Chelsea at the weekend and we played Tottenham last weekend and we got Bayern Munich in midweek. And even like the Carabao Cup games now, you're talking about a quarterfinal, aren't you? You're talking about a quarterfinal. So you don't want to take too many risks there and mess around there either. So it can be quite difficult. And I think these kind of games are helpful, of course, in terms of getting those players up to speed. Look, we're going to take a really short pause. When we come back, I'm going to take a few of your questions from the live chat. I've got a couple of bits of other business that I want to get into because they've been the real subject of debate in some of my WhatsApp groups today. And I feel it's important that I get things off my chest with regards to them. Let's do that right after this.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
You heard him. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you're with us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on audio, whether that's Apple or Spotify, please do leave us a review. You can check us out on Patreon as well. For less than the price of a cup of coffee per month, you will get access to our bonus content. You'll get access to all our episodes completely ad-free, access to our Discord server. That's what's there. Plus, you'll be supporting me to bring you the pod as regularly as we do. Okay, let's get into a couple of other bits of business. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the red card in the game yesterday between Manchester United and Everton. Idrissa Gueye was sent off for getting involved in some fisticuffs with Michael Keane. Yep, his teammate. It's such a bizarre incident. Like, it has happened in football before. Like, I remember a very famous one between Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer at Newcastle. That was a lot more brutal than this one. That got way out of hand. And in the end, both players were punished. Look, I've seen a lot of people, and my good friend Tom Canton is very passionate about this the other way. He says that, if it's violent conduct, it doesn't matter who the subject of that was, and if a kid's watching it, you're setting a bad example, and so the referee has no choice but to follow the letter of the law and to send the player off. Me, I'm on the fence about it. In fact, if you was to force me to get down off of the fence, I'd probably jump down on the side that says not a red card. I think an experienced referee in years gone by who isn't petrified of the noise and the hysteria that will come with making such a decision, I think an experienced referee of old goes over and has a word with both players and shows them both a yellow card, maybe goes over and has a quick word with David Moyes or the captain, whoever the captain is. Was any of them the captain? I don't even know. That's poor from me, but I don't know. I think a bit of common sense needed to prevail, because people keep saying, oh, he slapped him. Oh, it's assault. Oh, God, it's not assault, is it? Like, I'm not saying it was a jovial slap or it was like a patting on the cheek or, one of those patronizing ones that doesn't have any force. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I don't know. There was a part of me that thought it's a real shame, actually, that he's got to do that he's got to send him off. And then I started to think, well, does he have to send him off? Like, does he actually have to send him off? Like, if he doesn't send him off, will there be outrage around the world about it? Will we hear the noise about it? Maybe because Manchester United were involved in the game, things might have been amplified. because whenever there's a big club involved, and I'm sure the Man United fans were happy to see Idrissa Gueye shown a red card. I mean, not that it helped them on the night and in terms of how the game went. But sometimes when there's a big club involved, an incident can be amplified because of the conversation that it sparks, and that brings more scrutiny and that brings more pressure on the officials, etc., etc. Look, Gueye lost his head. There's no question about that. Like, he lost his head. But Michael Keane's not completely innocent in this whole thing as well. And I just found it strange that, Idrissa Gueye, who did sort of make a slapping motion, I agree on that, is sent off. Michael Keane gets off completely scot-free, and everybody just sort of brushes it under the carpet and moves on. Idrissa Gueye's come out and apologized, by the way, since. Said it won't happen again, apologized to his teammates, apologized to Michael Keane, and they went on and won the game. And David Moyes said after the game, I quite like it when my players fight each other. I'm sure you do, mate, if they go to Old Trafford and win. I'm not saying it definitely wasn't a red card and it's a disgrace and an outrage. I'm not even saying it definitely wasn't, but I just think that if I were the referee, I might have looked to avoid the red card. I might have looked to try and deal with this situation in a different way. And the problem is now that because of the scrutiny that referees and officials come under, and in a lot of cases, that's rightly so, because the standard's fallen a lot. I think because of that level of scrutiny, there is this kind of fear of applying common sense now. And the referee's just going to try and follow the letter of the law, because that means that he'll always have that to turn to and to hold up against any criticism. So I kind of get it from the referee's perspective, because the climate that we live in, especially around referees, it's going to bring on pressure. Any debate brings on pressure. And obviously, if you follow the letter of the law, there will still be people like me that are sitting here going, no, I probably wouldn't have sent him off. But ultimately, if it went to court or whatever, you'd always win, wouldn't you? Because you followed the letter of the law. Whereas I'm just talking about applying a bit of common sense. And we all know that in 2025, there isn't much space for common sense in the world anymore. But yeah, I wouldn't have sent him off. I wouldn't have. I'd have booked him. I'd have given him a stern talking to. I'd have had a chat with Michael Keane, and I probably would have jogged over and had a word with David Moyes and the captain and said, sort this out. Because if this flares up again, they're both gone. That's what I would have done. Honestly, on top of that, right, and Paul Rickett makes a really good point in the chat. He says, couldn't wait to send him off. Thought he'd give the game to Man United. Didn't work out, though. Look, I'm not saying he was trying to give the game to Man United, but where you say he couldn't wait to send him off, that's the bit that really resonated with me, because take your time, go and have a word with the linesman, go and have a word with the fourth official, ask the VAR to help you out, because if you're talking about a potential red card, then the VAR can intervene there. But it's the way he really quickly reaches for his pocket and shows a red card that kind of made me think, hold on a minute, you haven't actually processed what's just happened here, have you? That was my frustration with it. Maybe more than the final decision itself. The other thing I want to touch on very, very quickly before we dive into the live chat, and if you're with us and you've got any questions, drop them in. I'll pick up a couple before we say goodbye. Was this feature on Sky Sports, I don't know if you've seen it, called The Box, where they put, I think it was 4 Arsenal fans and 4 Spurs fans in a box, didn't let them watch the game, just showed them a few screen grabs from the game. They had no idea what was going on. They predicted in a lot of cases that Spurs narrowly won, or there was some narrow Arsenal victories predicted in there as well. And then at the end, they get shown the final score. They all react to it, etc., etc. Go and check it out. It's on the Sky Sports YouTube channel. The Box, it's called. The amount of heat that concept and show is getting online, to me, is crazy. Listen, it's not my cup of tea. Okay, if you ask me tomorrow to go on The Box and miss a big Arsenal game, me personally, I couldn't do it. Okay, I couldn't do it. Do I agree with the concept? Is it a concept that I would have come up with? Probably not. But at the same time, why does everyone hate it so much? More importantly, why does everyone care so much? There'll be people that enjoy it. there'll be people that enjoy it and, go ahead and watch it and lap it up and whatever. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just getting old, but like I look at stuff and I'm like, it might not be for me, but let people do what they want to do, like live and let live kind of thing. That's my kind of mantra for the season. Like, it's not something I would do. It's not something that particularly appeals to me, but I did have a watch out of curiosity today more than anything else, because I'd seen so many comments on it. I'd seen so many messages in chats that I'm in forums and stuff about this thing. I was like, I have to go and watch it. It was only like a 12, 13-minute video or whatever it was. And I just thought to myself, okay, like it's decent entertainment. It's probably quite cool to watch after the fact. If it's your team and you know what's coming in terms of the result, you probably want to watch it. You probably want to tune in. You probably want to see how it all unfolded. Like, but that's fine. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it, I guess is my point. And I say that to people that come on this channel constantly and troll me in the comments and have a pop at me. And it's like, well, why are you here then? Like, you don't have to be here. It's not compulsory. Look, and then I see a lot of people say stuff like, Sky, what have they done? Why are they doing this? Why are they changing? It used to be elite television. It's not anymore, etc., etc. Look, Sky have to move with the times. And whether we like it or not, there are certain trends and there are certain things that work. There are certain things that have turned the YouTube space into a really powerful place. And the mainstream are having to pander to that a little bit. And they're having to adjust the way that they do things in order to stay in touch. And some of it is going to work. Some of it's not going to work. I suppose, like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really watch Sky anymore in terms of their all-round programming. I watch Sky for live football and live sport. Same with TNT. Like, I watch TNT for the live games because that's what they have that other people in the space don't. But the programming around that, I'm kind of neither here nor there on it. And so if you do something like this, if you do this in the box thing, I think that's what it's called. I don't even know if it's what it's called. If you do that, like, fine, see how it goes, try it. It might never happen again. But yeah, like, look, Sammers makes the point in the chat, like, even I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which is a TV show here in England that's been going for years and years and years, where they pick a bunch of celebrities, they put them in the jungle, and they got to do trials and things to survive and to earn food and stuff like that. And they've been putting YouTubers and podcasters in it in the last couple of series, because that's the way the world's going, and that's fine. Like, Sky would be stupid not to try and adapt and adjust to the landscape out there. Same with any other TV channel. So you might not agree with that concept in isolation. It's not something I would do. Like, if someone called me up and said, Harry, would you go and do that for the next North London derby? I'd say, you having a laugh, because the idea of missing a North London derby, I get anxiety when I'm going to miss 5 minutes of a game. I get anxiety if I'm watching a game and the signal goes down for 2 minutes, let alone that. So it's not for me, but I can see why it's an interesting concept and why it appeals to some people. I guess my message on that is, if you like it, fine, great. If you don't like it, also fine. But why are people so angry, like, to the point where they want to go and shit on it, on someone else's thing? I don't get it. Anyway. Okay, let's take a couple of your questions then before we wrap up today's show. Wesbird says, hi, Harry. I'm sure I've asked you this before, but I'm still concerned regarding Arteta's management and not being proactive enough with his subs. What's his opinion? What's your opinion? I beg your pardon. P.S. Hope the family are well. So I felt at Sunderland that we could have made a midfield change to freshen things up, to provide fresh legs a little bit after we scored the second goal, that is. I think we scored on like 74, 76 minutes. I felt like we could have done with some extra legs in midfield, because to me, we looked tired. We didn't do it. I'm not saying that's why we conceded, but I was frustrated by that. I thought he could have been more proactive with some subs at the weekend, given the position that we were in, but it's a big game. Maybe Mikel knows best, and obviously didn't make that decision. But it is a slight concern for me that we've got this squad, we've got this depth in a lot of positions, and it still feels like at times we are working certain players too hard. But then I also recognize that some players are just so damn good that unless you've got like a superhuman sub, you're not going to want to take them off. You're not going to want to lose them, and you're not going to want to start the second player who might be good enough for most other teams, but our standards and our bar right now is really, really high. So it is a little bit of a concern for me, just in terms of player welfare and fitness. But I hope that over the course of the season, we'll do it enough to protect those when they really, really need it. Nelson says, is it an English thing to overreact to every small thing? It never used to be. Okay. It never used to be, as far as I can see. It used to be that things were always discussed, debated, that things would always be talked about. But like, I don't know, there's like a new level of bitterness and anger that just seems to grip everyone whenever there's a sort of semi-divisive topic that comes up. And I don't like that. Like, you can have an opinion on something without it being the kind of opinion that you're willing to get angry for, and angry at others for holding maybe the opposite view. I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know. Is it? I include myself in this as well. Is it a British thing right now? Maybe. Okay. What else have we got in the chat box? Andy says, it's probably a complaint, just going back to this Sky show, because their main product, like the presentation debate around football, is weak and biased stuff. And so people mock the silly, fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't like all of the punditry on Sky Sports. I certainly don't like some of the discussions I've had with some of the people on Sky Sports News in recent weeks, not because I don't like them as people, but just because I think it's designed to make clickbait out of me and others. And that Sky should be above that for me. But then I go back to the point that I made earlier, which is, can Sky afford to be above that in the ever-changing landscape? And the answer to that question is probably no. And so while I don't like it and I feel uneasy about it and I'm uncomfortable with it, I kind of get it as well. Joachim says, internet is like a traffic jam. Everybody gets frustrated and honks their horn. Agreed. And Dre2K says, social media just amplified everything. I agree with that. Because a lot of the opinions, the extreme opinions that would have been, spoken about in a pub over a drink with only friends present, are now going out to the entire world. And then that triggers certain people and sparks debates and arguments and back and forth and all the rest of it. So I agree. Social media has brought us a lot of good things, but one of the bad things is that it seems to have just made everybody a hell of a lot angrier. Anyway, look, we're going to wrap up there. We'll be back on tomorrow morning's show with a look at the team. What I would do, we'll build up to the game more specifically. We'll have a little look at Bayern as well and what we can expect from them. Vincent Kompany's side flying high at the top of the Bundesliga and flying high at the top of the Champions League phase as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about them and the game itself on tomorrow's episode. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great day. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.
Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Simi, you time. Come on, you Gunners.